Hey, GW coming to you live. Tomorrow is going to be a very, very sad day. Not because anyone's going to pass away or anything like that, but our local mall is closing. And yesterday, I had went to Butler with my wife. She had to return some shirts at Boscov's. I took my phone with me, and I was going to get some footage of the actual mall to show you. And as she was returning shirts, I made my way through the store to try to get to the entrance of the actual mall part, and they had a couple of police patrolling. And in fact, when we pulled up to Boscov's, there was at least two or three state troopers there. So I don't know what was going down, but they had. My wife was like, "Greg, don't shoot a video because you might, get arrested or confronted or that." And so I was not able to do that, and I really wanted to. She had read the mall was closing earlier, and I wanted to get, some footage because I went to that mall ever since I was a kid. And the mall has a special place for me. In fact, I met a lot of friends there. A lot of friends. That cat Charlie I talked about, I met him in FYE. Of course, if you watch the video, you guys already know that. I have been in every store there. My wife and I actually, when we were dating, would go up there and hang out. And I want to tell you just a little bit about that place, my memories about it, and I think we're going to call this video Requiem for a Mall. I think that's what we're going to call it. So, where do I begin? My guess yesterday is a good analogy, good starting point. Yesterday, my wife read on Facebook that the owner of the mall decided to close it after a lot of financial uh, losses. Basically, the general consensus on the street was that anybody that moves in, the rent is so high that they can't afford to stay there. And you saw that with the years that the mall was hustling and busy. You would see like a Hershey store, move in, and it would stay there for maybe a year and a half if you were lucky, and move out. But the mall had a lot of stores in it, some of which I can't remember the name, but I'll try to, go through them all. There was FYE. Before that, it was Camelot. Across the street, you had Waves Music, which I met a pretty cool person there too, named Sarah Beth Sway. And I wonder what she's doing. I haven't seen her in a while, but she was great. She was also a friend of Josh Klaus, and I got to know them. On the opposite side, Camelot, and got to know a lot of people. Brian, I forget his last name, but he's like they're recognizable in the crowd. Um, Sears, you had Sears there, and you would buy all your appliances from there because they were pretty reputable. You had Aladdin's Castle, where you would go, and it was just wall to wall arcade games. And that place had closed, and then it turned into a Chinese restaurant, which then turned into a Mexican restaurant. So it kept changing. Evolution was a lot of the mall. Like some things would be there, some things wouldn't be, some things would last, some things wouldn't last. You had Walden Books, which I really liked, that turned into Books a Million. You had KB Toys, which was really cool because you could go from KB Toys directly across the tunnel to Aladdin's Castle. And in the middle, toward the Sears end, you had two fountains. And it was a good place to stop, collect your thoughts, throw a penny in the wishing well if you wanted to. But when me and my wife were dating, we actually stopped there. And you could smoke there. You could smoke in the mall, which is really cool. And we would kiss and kind of cuddle, at the fountain. It was kind of cool. And they had these giant plants sticking out. They also had skylights, which was really neat. Um, what else did you have? You had a fashion bug where one of the girls who's babysat me, Samantha Carlantonio, her sister Jackie used to work there. And we'd go in there, and you could buy WWE t-shirts there, like the DX ones, the old ones. You could go do that. They had Spencer's, which you could buy. I got tons of ICP clothes there. CDs were cool at Spencer's because they were the actual, like, you could go get like the new Marilyn Manson release or Insane Clown Posse release for on the cheap. I think it was only like $10 for a CD there. And I got to know a lot of the people there. And in Christmas time, just thinking about it, the hallway of the mall was packed with sellers, selling trinkets or, ornaments or whatever. And we met a lot of people there. In fact, one Christmas, and I don't know if I ever talked about this, one Christmas I met somebody that I cleaned up for, and her name was LaRue Ireland, and she invited us back into her kiosk, and we talked, and she had since passed away, and she was a wonderful lady. But it was right outside Walden Books there, and it was really neat to see that. And in Christmas too, just in talking, you would actually get your presents wrapped. You could take them up to a place where I think it was near Dunham's, and you put it down, and I think for $1.50 or $2, they'd wrap your presents. It was pretty cool. I even remember when Hills was there, because I got countless cassette tapes, and I know I'm wearing the Megadeth t-shirt. I think I got the Megadeth tape at Hills, if I'm not mistaken. Hills was cool because it had everything. It was like a Walmart before Walmart existed. And when you went out to entrance through the front of it, it had like a little snack bar deal. They had the Orange Julius machines, and they had the popcorn machines, right? And everything was cool. They had the hot dogs rotating in rack. And it was a lot of fun, mall rat. And those were the days where you could spend hours in the mall. Then you had Garfield's, which Garfield's moved out. Garfield's will always hold a special place for me. That's where I proposed to my wife. And it was so funny. I proposed in the middle of the entire restaurant, and one of the manager come over and told me if she says yes, the meal's on them. And it was really, like I said, I don't want to get into a story. I'll tell you that story later. But it was really it really has a spot in my heart, for that place, because that was Dawn's favorite restaurant. Dawn loved Garfield's. In fact, we went there when we got back together. You had a Rite Aid, which then I think it was a far more than it was a Rite Aid, where you could go get medicine, knickknacks, just like you can in any CVS or Walgreens. And one of the girls I went to school with, Beth Hegman, she worked there. And I would go in and talk to her occasionally. Since then, they have that part of the mall blocked off. Adjacent to that was an alleyway where you could go in, and it was like, I always liked to go through there because you could go through there and get a little bit further into the parking lot, but you weren't really supposed to go there. And I remember, again, crawling through there. I think I scrawled my name on the wall. GMW was here or something like that. What else did you have? You had a cookie place that you could go get those giant cookies, and it's just so many memories. You had a Foot Locker where my man Brian worked. Brian was cool because you could always go up there and talk to him, and he would go out of his way for you. If he didn't have a shoe or a jersey in your size, he would special order it, and he would take care of you. And, that was cool. Radio Shack was there too, and I bought my first DVD recorder there, and I talked to a dude named Parrish. Parrish was awesome. Parrish was like the tech guy that knew everything, that would steer you in the right direction as purchases. But he also really, really appreciated just BSing with everybody. And he worked with a cat named Mark. Mark was cool. I still see Mark from time to time. All the now with the mall closing, I don't think I'm going to see him. Mark runs this little teeny tiny inlet arcade thing, and Mark's a cool guy. And Mark helped me tremendously, again, with the DVD player, the DVD recorder, as well as, some other knickknacks that I needed, electrical stuff. Radio Shack was the place to go. In fact, I bought my first satellite radio from Radio Shack, and I think Mark was the one that recommended it to me. And you know what, Mark? I still have that radio. Um, there's countless memories of that place. My sister actually worked into where you went into the entrance that said mall. Adjacent to that was a movie theater. So for a summer or two, maybe longer, she worked at the theater. And she would always, say, hey, Greg, you need to go see this movie. And she would get us discounts and would go see it. In fact, in that same theater in the mall, when Speed came out, we went to go see Speed, and believe it or not, Speed, yeah, it was Speed. No, Blade. Blade was the one we went to go see. I'm sorry, because we had just watched Speed, and we tried to take my sister in to see Blade, and they wouldn't let her go see it. They carded her, believe it or not. Ain't no big deal. I think they did that with Speed too, because then, I know they did it with Speed because, a week later it came on VHS and we all watched it at home, so no big deal. But then my sister ended up working there, and that was a cool place. You'd go in there and smell like a movie theater, popcorn everywhere. It was great. Um, it really was. It was really a nice little touch, and you remember these things. And I can remember in Boscov's going to get a tree. We had to get a Christmas tree. And I remember when Boscov's moved in, there was a guy from Texas come down here. And me, my buddy Jake, my two buddies Jake and John at that time, they're not my buddies now. I haven't talked to them, so I can't really speculate. We were there when Boscov's moved in, and I think they gave us free umbrellas. And I remember, I think my mom has the umbrella, and we stayed there. They moved in on a Friday, and we were there from 3 to 7 or 8, just wandering the store, because they gave you discounts because it was grand opening. My Uncle Pete also worked for Boscov's too, up in the auditorium, so it was nice to know. So everywhere we went in that mall, we knew somebody. You know what I mean? I'd go get my hair cut right adjacent from Walt Books. I used to go get my hair cut there, a lot of times. Then they had that one store, I can't remember what it was, but they had all these ceramic things, and you never wanted to go in it because you were afraid you were going to break something. And I think we bought a Donald Duck as a firefighter, as a hard plastic deal. And I think it's sitting in the computer room, but I cannot remember the name of that place. But you always passed it. Nobody went in there because everything was so damn expensive, But, I knew that the mall was probably going to take a downturn because the mall that my grandma lived by, Century 3, where they filmed Dawn of the Dead, it closed down many, many years ago, and it also is now marked for destruction. I think last time I checked, it is being destroyed. And it just seems like malls are going away. Now everybody's shifting to Amazon and doing everything over the internet. But, I'm old school. I like that person-to-person connection. And some of these places, like I said, in the mall, have very special meaning to me. The people that I've met, frequenting that mall, we are still friends. Me and Charlie are still friends. Me and Brian are still friends. Me and Parrish, I guess if we ever see each other, we're going to kick up and talk about it. Me and Mark will probably BS about something stupid, some sci-fi deal. But the point is, you didn't go there. Oh, I can remember way back whenever I was a kid, we went to Roy Rogers. Roy Rogers was in that mall. And it was like an L-shaped restaurant because you went in one way to get seated, and then you came out the other way and they had little tiny kids rides, So yeah, I have so many memories of that place because I was there all the time when I was a kid. But my point is that, it's sad, and I wanted to get some footage for you guys. I really did. But when I saw the police run, going through there, I didn't want to like film it without the owner's permission and get in trouble and then have the footage deleted. And I'm sure somebody somewhere will post some footage of the empty mall because the last, I'd say 2 to 3 years we've been in there, it's been dead. I think the only time we ever went in there lately is I bought a Donald Trump shirt. They had a guy sitting there, I can't even remember the name of the store, but he made his own shirts, like he ironed them on and stuff. So I got one of them. And then we went into calendars, etc., or something, whatever that store was, because Dawn usually buys calendars everywhere. But as for the fate of like the stores where you can walk out to the parking lot, which would be Boscov's, the Dragon, um, the trampoline park. There's a trampoline park up there now, which I don't even know how it's in existence because everybody. There used to be a Bonton up there. Bonton was awesome. You'd walk through there. You could walk for days up through there. They had really good deals too. In fact, when they shut down, I think they gave us like coat racks and stands for mannequins. I don't even know. I took it just because, hey, you never know. But, the mall will be missed. And it was a place that I spent, I would say, half my childhood. And that was the thing to do on a Friday. Hey, what are you doing? Nothing. Hey, let's go up to the mall. And I would go up to the mall. My Fridays in high school consisted of going up to the mall, buying the latest movie or video game, hanging out with Dawn. They also had a GameStop up there, and I would spend a lot of time in there. And I got to know all the GameStop staff, a lot of which at the current GameStop I still run into, and we talk about the old days. And I'm very appreciative of them. In fact, I think I did a video of the GameStop staff in Clearview Mall. That's how much I think of them. But I would go up there Friday, like I said, check out the latest movie, hit the latest or I'd go directly to Spencer's, buy the new ICP CD, get a couple T-shirts. I felt like awesome. I still got Hot Topic gift cards or a Hot Topic, member cards. That was the other thing that was cool was all those stores in there. You would get cards, and you would show it, and you would get a certain percentage off if you were a member. And again, a lot of stores don't do that anymore. A lot of them do, a lot of them don't. My wife would frequent Bath and Body Works, But to see the whole thing shut down and be dead space, it saddens me, And like I said, I got up yesterday morning, and I heard the mall was closed, and I said, I'm going to get footage for this YouTube channel, and I could not do it. My wife was like, don't shoot the video, but I wanted to do something different. I wanted to flip you guys on your ear and show you that, I'm not just about talking horror films, but there are things that mean something to me, and I wanted to share that with you, or at least give you a last glimpse of what the mall would look like before it's shut down or possibly tore down or whatever. And I couldn't do it, and I feel terrible, but at the same time, it was the right move not to shoot the video. And I'm glad people were digging my monkey review. I saw a couple of people watch that, and like I said, it's a fun film. But movies and that are one thing, but then there's real life, and things happen in real life that affect you. Sort of like I said, a mall closure, And it's going to sting, but you know what? During the mall's, I'd say the middle part of the mall's life cycle, Walmart was built, and Bon Air sort of filled out, with some stores. So there are other places, but I wonder, I told my wife this the other day, with the advent of Amazon and everybody's going to, internet stores and all this, it's like, how long is that person-to-person connection going to last? And the answer is, I don't know. I don't know. But this video, like I said, was just about my memories of the mall. And I probably have many, many more, but those are the ones. Yeah, I do have one more. And I'll share this one. It's kind of stupid, but it at the movie theater where the mall was located, me and my wife, my girlfriend at the time, my best friend Dre, and his date, we went to go see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and with Jessica Biel. I love that film franchise. I think it's one of the greatest, most shocking, terrifying horror films and fun horror films to watch. So we all went out to see it on a double date. And it was like 4 o'clock, maybe 5 o'clock. No, it was like 5 o'clock because we ate at Garfield's before that. We went to we went to go see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And there was nobody in the theater but us, and I thought that was really cool. And I don't know what they were doing. Me and my wife were trying to watch the movie. She likes Jessica Biel. I like the horror aspect. And we were, like I said, we had the whole theater to ourselves. And the next thing I know, they're making a lot of noise. And it's cool. They were carrying on. They were making out, doing whatever. But the movie became unwatchable because of their noise. Now, not that I was mad at Dre. And Dre, I'm not mad at you. Um, so we ended up leaving the theater. And I was very upset because I had waited to see this. I think it came out in May. I think May 17th. If I can remember right, I don't know. Sometimes you get dates wrong. But we went to see it, I think, for my birthday. So the minute we were out of that theater, Dawn grabbed me by the hand. We went up to FYE, and Dawn actually pre-ordered the movie for me. In fact, I'm looking at the limited edition tin that they gave me with the movie. And she paid for it right there. And of course, Dre and his date apologized. And it's cool. I mean, it was fine. I didn't even get mad. But I was surprised that Dawn cared about that much to do that. And, that coupled with the proposal story, which I guess I should tell you that one now too. So, at K Jewelers at the mall, I picked up a wedding ring for Dawn, an engagement ring. I didn't tell her. I just told her, hey, we're going to go out to lunch. I'm buying. So I picked out an engagement ring at K's, stopped there on the way to Dawn's house. Picked Dawn up, came back, and we sat down, everything. They had a microphone, up at the top, and they would call your name. They'd be like, Warner, party of two. So, okay. So, we get sat down, and my heart's going, because I know I'm going to do this. I know I'm going to ask Dawn out, right? I'm going to ask her to marry me. I know I'm going to do it. So my heart's pounding a mile a minute. And I waited till she ordered the appetizer. She got settled in. She didn't know anything was happening. And I acted like I forgot something in the car because we parked outside of the place. And I got up and I said, excuse me, everybody, I have an announcement to make. People stopped because I was loud. And at this point, I'm scared to death, but I know I got to do this, right? And I said, I have an announcement to make. And I looked at Dawn and I said, I love you. I have one question for you. And I got down on my knee in front of waitresses, carrying trays, everything, right? Now, I would have used the microphone, but it wasn't working because I asked on the way in. So Dawn is just like looking at me like, oh my God. And she bolted to the bathroom. And I'm thinking, oh great, she's going to say no. Manager sees what's going on, comes over to me and says, if she says yes, your meal is on us. The waitress who brought our drinks stopped down. She goes, I've heard of this happening, but I've never seen it. And now I'm like, so amplified by adrenaline. I don't know what's going on. I just couldn't believe I just did what I did. She comes out of the bathroom. I stand up from the table. She grabs me and squeezes me. I still got nail marks in the back of my neck, right? She dug in. And she says yes. And everybody started clapping. And I'm not making this up. And the manager comes over and he goes, "Congratulations, your meal's on us." I said, "Okay." So then my dad used to go there for a haircut. So they ended up coming past the window. They had these giant glass windows and they waved. And I said, "Come on over." Now, they did not know that I had proposed to them. And my dad they kind of knew, but they didn't know when. So we actually ended up eating on the manager's dime because Dawn said yes. And actually, when Dawn came back, Dawn and I were apart for a while. She had to go do some schooling and whatever. And I was really stupid. I broke up with her. At the time you're young and you're dumb. And in fact, I met her. She said, "Meet me at the mall." Whenever I saw her, I walked past that woman 6 times because I did not recognize her. So finally, the 6th time, she grabs me and she goes, "Let's talk." I said, "All right." So we go out to my car. I was parked near Rite Aid or Farmore. And she proceeded to tell me how stupid I am for dumping me, which she had every right to do. I go to slump in my car because I'm like, I'm just going to go get some beer and go home, right? I go to slump in my car. She grabs me by the collar, slams me up against the car, jams her tongue down my throat, and we go eat at Garfield's. And that's how we got back together. Again, so the mall plays a pivotal part in our history, and it has a special place for me and Dawn. And it's just going to hurt driving past that location, knowing it's empty and knowing all these memories I had. And there's, like I said, there's countless more. But tomorrow the mall will be closed. So if you're watching this after tomorrow, then yeah, it's going to be closed. And I don't know how many people are going to see this, but I know the people that I have had contact with. Everybody who took care of us when we went to the Dragon a few times, to Radio Shack, to KB Toys, Aladdin's Castle, Sears, everybody that has been cool with me and cool with my wife and treated us more than just shoppers. I wanted to thank all of you because you're the reason some of these memories still go. And I really don't have much to say. I don't know how to end on that, but I'm just going to say again, thank you for everybody in the mall who took care of us, all the friends we've made along the way. I'm glad we still cool. And I'm glad that we can always look back on those days. But it's going to be a very different environment with the mall not being here. Because nothing can replace malls. Nothing.